Hi, I'm Ken Soh from Athena Dynamics Singapore, a cybersecurity consulting company specializing in disruptive cybersecurity technology protection of critical infrastructure. First and foremost, I would like to congratulate Vietnam for achieving outstanding performance in the recent SEA Games event. And today, I'm truly humbled to be given this opportunity to be able to share with everyone a live and unexpected journey of digital to business transformation of our group company, VH Global, which resulted in the formation of a subsidiary company, Athena Dynamics, coming from the group IT department as a spin-off into a subsidiary business unit. Sometimes we call it DX2Bx, or sometimes we also like to lightheartedly call this that we sort of driving a digital transformation initiative. We over-transform it and it became a business transformation. All right, if you see from the slide here, there are two major technical elements, which is cloudification and cybersecurity technologies. Somehow these two forms are very important elements, or should I call catalysts, in this entire transformation process, which I'll elaborate more in my presentation later. There's also a baseline requirement that is so necessary for this transformation is the culture of the company, which I will also then touch base accordingly in my subsequent slides. Without further ado, just let me do a one slide introduction of ourselves. Right, we're a homegrown Singapore company. I joined the company about 7-8 years back. The group company is VH Global. There wasn't any Athena Dynamics subsidiary at all at that time. And I was glad to be able to give an opportunity to explore various initiatives in the world, including very special technology when we are facing some kind of cybersecurity challenge against advanced threat about 7-8 years ago. That was quite an experience, of course challenging, but it turned out that we found something special. And then we started to sell this into Singapore government and a lot of large organizations. Ending up, the group company decided that the group IT department then spin off from a call center to a business center named Athena Dynamics in 2014. So what actually catalyzed all this to happen? First and foremost, we're trying to solve a real-life problem within the group. And we realized that advanced threat is so advanced nowadays. And we try to buy the most advanced software in the world. It didn't totally help us. And we decided to take the matter in our own hand. And we sometimes call ourselves eat our own dog food, or we sip our own champagne. We put all this special technology into our group infra and observe them whether they are truly useful, truly practical from a very operational practitioner perspective. And if it works, we park it under our subsidiary company and introduce it to the markets. So at this moment, we have the spin-off. I would say we're quite proud that over the last 7 years, we acquired about 160 enterprise customers. And a lot of them are government agencies protecting the likes of energy plant, power plant, including satellite plant, the critical infrastructure. And today, I think we find that we can contribute a value add region. And that's why we were thinking of if there's any opportunity to actually collaborate and more sharing of all this knowledge with other countries like Vietnam would be really, really useful. As we can learn from each other in this very challenging and unceasingly changing threat landscape. All right, today's big topic is digital transformation, as we know. Well, it's a big buzzword, but today we know that it is something that is driven by C-level for the longest time, and to drive that is not a simple initiative, right? It can be uphill, it can be very challenging, and usually we would see it as in a journey of 1,000-mile kind of thing, but we need to really start with our first step. So today I'd like to present this in two very basic elements of cybersecurity and culture of the company that actually we should look into in any digitalization initiative. All right. So let's look at cyber first. Okay. For the longest time, we always say that the C-suite is the main driver of digital transformation, right? And today, let's do a survey, right? I do a self-survey, whether digital transformation is really driven by the C-level as in the CEO, right? The big boss, right? With the cigar. So no, it is not, right? Why? The landscape is very different now, right? So then we ask ourselves, is the digital transformation then is driven by another C, which is a CTO or the hardworking CIO? Unfortunately, it is not. It's driven by a new C. It's called COVID-19, right? So COVID-19 has created a new world norm of mandated transformation as we observe. It's no rocket science. I think everybody knows about it. And it resulted in a ruthless sectorial transfer of wealth, right? I mean, certain industry like F&A, travel industry, industry that require face-to-face communication, require physical object, is not doing pretty well. It's hard hit. We call it COVID hit. But there's another sector that's COVID lift, which in terms, we're not saying that we're trying to capitalize on a bad situation, but truly they became better, their business became better in such a situation. For example, the likes of digital platform, even like in Singapore, bicycle shop, is doing very well because people are buying a bicycle to exercise, they can go to the gym, and even like some pet shop and vet shop are doing very well because people are getting stressed out, working from home and always being locked down and stay at home. So pets and vets became a very interesting thing to them, and the business was booming, right? So it's a new kind of demand pattern that we see in the industry today. So then come back to the challenges of this transformation, right? I mean, the industry, as we know, is nothing new. It's a matter of innovate or elaborate. We must constantly innovate to constantly cannibalize ourselves. Otherwise, there's no choice. Other people will have new innovation and disruptive technology to cannibalize us. And that's the way it works. And when we are facing lockdown, initial days of COVID, when we are not vaccinated, life is really tough. And in Singapore, such a small place, right? We need communication and connection to the world. So when there's lockdown, everything is almost come to a standstill. But very fortunately, in Singapore, our government has various initiatives, right? They form digital office, they form isolation initiative, they form Go Digital initiative with grants and with guidance that help various citizens, including businesses, to how to cope with all these changes in environment, hence the transformation to adapt to all these changes. So why I say is innovate or elaborate. I mean, I wouldn't elaborate more on this example. So you can see that all this innovation doesn't exist, like 20 years ago. So if we extrapolate from here, maybe 5 or 10 years down the road, there are a lot more new businesses and new innovation and new disruption that we can't even think of or conceive today, right? So things are changing, unceasingly changing, dynamic landscape. So as you can see, even in Singapore, hawkers maybe selling fish soup, or in local slang called zi cai, basically is a restaurant kind of food. Yeah, I mean, they go online, and some of them in fact sell more fish than the usual day before COVID. So transformation is so key, right? So then what is the next challenge? A natural challenge under COVID-19 situation is working from home, right? So it's the challenge of this is it doesn't come slowly. It came suddenly, and there's a lockdown, and people try to adapt to all this. How to adapt, right? Wow, it's a big challenge, as we call it about early days. There are so many issues in many companies. So it's a mandated adaptation. And this was a real place that worked from home for that 2 long years. So we need to be physically separated and of course digitally isolated as well for security reasons as we move working from home without the enterprise protection, right? So now you can see that the elements of digital transformation and then plus working from home, the cybersecurity posture become very, very important. So, but then when we look at cybersecurity solutions, so-called solutions, there are thousands and thousands of them. So which is right and which is the right thing to pick to protect the company? Well, every company and landscape is different. So we really need to understand the landscape first before we can actually protect better. It's just like we don't go to a clinic and just continue to buy the medicines without seeing a doctor, right? The doctor has to find out what happened to the patient. So if we don't really understand our own situation, then the solution could be overkill, spending a lot of money, but trying to solve the problem. Worse still, it doesn't solve the problem. And the other thing is that it may underprotect, right? Where it just doesn't solve the problem because we buy a small solution for a larger landscape of things. But as I can see, the landscape then, the time I was looking at is that there are a lot of enterprises when they do digitalization and when cybersecurity came into play, they are looking at the effect, not the cost. All right, that's a general fundamental focus. I give you an example. Companies having a business email compromise kind of thing. They receive very, very real phishing email. They know your supplier, they have your document, they have your letterhead, they know what are you talking about, partner, and they probably ask you to transfer like 80,000 US dollars to them for your next payment. And a lot of companies actually transferred money because the whole thing just looked too real. So then many companies also start to buy anti-phishing technologies, right? Anti-phishing gateway and things. It's good, but it doesn't address the effect. The moment, why I say that is that the moment you see all these very real phishing email coming to your enterprise, it means that they're already in your shop observing your communication, or is already in existing, they've infiltrated to your partner's network. That's why they can see your communication and they'll come in at the right time to look so real to achieve their malicious purposes. So the perspective should not be looking at the effect as an anti-phishing, but it should be looking at cost, which is how to prevent all these advanced threat from coming into land in the first place. All right. So I'll touch on a little bit more about this later, how to address the cost effectively. So today we talk about security, we talk about people, process, technologies, right? So I will not go into all the angles because individual item of them are very big topics by themselves. So today the situation is going to get more complicated by something called situation. That's why I call 3PS, the 3P plus S as in situation, right? So now let's say you look at the technology, how to prevent the advanced threat from coming into the net, right? I mean, just one example, like I mentioned, the anti-phishing case, how to address the cause of the problem, not the effect. Today, if you look at it, a lot of cybersecurity protection tools are detection-based, whether it is antivirus, right, multi-antivirus, sandboxing, machine learning, all sorts of threat intelligence. They are working on the same principle of trying to use the most advanced technology to detect the bad guy so as to remove them. But there's a fundamental efficiency and fallacy of this is because in the first place, we ask ourselves, we even detect them, right? They are so advanced today, they evade detection. And all the more, there are 500,000 new viruses coming out in the world every day, estimation. Even you can detect them today, you cannot detect them tomorrow. So the way that we have been educated by detection is not sufficient. We should not just focus on detection. Detect nothing doesn't mean save it, right? So we need to augment this with non-detection technologies. And the other area of cybersecurity consideration in the digital transformation is code review, right? I'm talking about application security. So when you look at application security, many people, let's say if they are in development, they will actually scan the source code and correct until perfection. Then they compile it and deploy in the binary. And this perception and the concept, to me, it is also inadequate. This is very important because a lot of mobile application is the key to digital transformation in the first place, right? Just now, the example of those innovations that show, they are all basically riding on mobile apps, right? So if you look at people that is trying to use source code checker, SAS, something called SAST, right? Static application security testing. They scan, found vulnerability, and they test. But there's one fundamental fallacy of this thinking is that it is not the source code that's deployed. It is a binary that's deployed, right? So you have a perfect source code, and compiler is not perfect. You go through compiler, the binary is actually another form, another being, another animal. So the binary need to check one more time. So we need to do binary code review. They are actually a very good way to do that. For example, like reverse engineer binary, not to get the source code is not legal, and then you can do the SAST on the reverse engineer source code. So this is very good to check both sides since they're all different existence. And at the same time, if you don't have a source code, let's say you buy common off-the-shelf software, it may be supply chain issue, right? I mean, their code already been modified by hackers, for example. And this can handle that very well because once you reverse engineer, you scan that, you have your OWASP top 10, CVE, hard-coded password, maybe call home, undocumented features, all will appear. Actually, then it's a best practice that this form the last gate for deployment into your production system. So a lot of people, like what I mentioned, check the source, right? But they also hence need to check the binary as well. So because plugin today has so many of binaries, it doesn't have source code, and then they have so many third-party components doesn't come with source code as well. So we need to have a proper framework that is a little bit stronger than the normal protection when we do digitalization. Why? Some of them today is no longer actually sufficient. I mean, some of the technologies. If you look at the NIST framework, we can map some of them. There are a lot more that we're doing in Singapore, but some of them that I could share is like, for example, a lot of people, they do not actually have updated set this in their company. There are a lot of tools there. There are some tools that is better than the other. Some can not just do vulnerability scan, but they can do actually exploit, and they can give you deeper, information about your network assets and their security posture. And for that to happen, we will recommend automated way as a baseline because at the same time it's low cost and the environment is so dynamic, right? If we scan it every year and maybe we scan maybe every week, then we can have the most recent cybersecurity posture as the landscape is changing. If we do it manually, it's expensive, it's time consuming, it's slow, and by the time the report's out, usually it's already outdated, right? So for protection, just now I mentioned about not just anti-phishing, right? To actually prevent advanced threat from coming in to the land. And a lot of tools are detection tools, and that actually is very, very risky. Why I say that is because today we can't detect them, right? And if you know about encryption, whether encryption is in transit, means like VPN, right? Encryption, or in transit, or at rest. At rest means like storage, right? Storage, encrypted storage. But a lot of people did not actually think about this. Is encryptions for the longest time, it has been protect our privacy. Unfortunately, today, because advanced threats are so difficult to detect, encryption is actually protecting viruses. Why I say that is the moment we miss one detection and the virus get in encrypted mode, whether it is transferred from your home or from home all the way to the core of your enterprise, you cannot detect them because it's protected by the encryption. You go to the endpoint. The endpoint in the enterprise has EDR, and EDR is usually detection as well. You cannot detect, and then you hide in the land, and that's how all those phishing events actually happen, right? So this happened to storage as well. If the storage doesn't actually do sanitization, which is detectionless, that is able to get rid of undetectable viruses, then we are actually encrypting viruses the moment you miss detection, and we are protecting the viruses in the storage as well, right? So I won't go into detail of some of them because of time constraint. There are passwordless, OTP-less authentication that we should look at because there's a saying that hackers don't break in, they simply log in, right? Because they steal your password and they log in. So the next big thing I read about Gartner's in the impact analysis is really to go passwordless or OTP-less, because if there's no password, there's no OTP, there's nothing to steal, right? Right. So just now the source codeless checking I mentioned. Some of them, technology we find very useful is like protected devices that doesn't have IP address. So it's completely invisible there. It's able to protect your firewall, and also it can make actually your essential equipment in your LAN disappear. So even if you have like APT in your LAN, when they do reconnaissance, they can find your important network. So let's look at all these very special technology, so that we can actually protect better. I'm not saying that traditional thinking is no good, but it forms a hygiene baseline for us to actually protect ourselves first, but it's not good enough, and we should augment this and for this special technology. But again, cybersecurity is not about looking for a product. And I need to qualify that, because from the 7 years into this, we learned that the moment you go out to look for the first step is already incorrect, right? Because cybersecurity is about, do we know our own weakness? Then we can apply the 80-20 way. We don't have to spend so much money. We spend 20% resources, protect 80% of our core thing first. Because cybersecurity is never 100%, right? And this is the way forward in our view. So usually what we do in the new environment that we look at is to do leak credential and leak files profiling, whether your file has been leaked, your password already put up for sale in the dark web, right? So this is one example. And then we also do surface attack checking, meaning you expose a surface to the internet, how weak is it, and plus the internal with auto VAPT, vulnerability assessment and pen testing to make sure that everything is okay. When you put the three things together, right, then you have a feel of where are your weaknesses that you should feel again, right? This one example that passwords are already put up for sale in the internet, and then we do like what I mentioned just now, internal VAPT, and then with that you know where are your weaknesses. Then you choose the right proposition and products to fit it in. You have seen the doctor, now you get the right answer, right? And that should be the way. So now come back to digitalization again. Just now we talked about cybersecurity. The other very important thing is about culture, right? So I always say we do beyond IT agility, and it's not just about process and things. It's about culture. It's very important, and culture usually start from the number one man in the organization. All right, and if it's a productive culture, it's open culture where everyone learn together, then it is an enterprise-wide kind of positivity, and this always simmer down to the multi-level pursuit. So in today's IT environment, a lot of IT departments are so busy. They are very reactive because they are structural cage. They are caged in the thinking of maintaining the operation. Sometimes we say that the IT side maintain the lights on for the 10 years. Nobody tap their shoulder and say thank you. But if it's down for 1 second, everyone is pointing at them. That is, quite common in any operation management. But we shouldn't look at this as the end of things, right? Why I say cloudification just now, that is so important, is because we realize that certain things in a company can be cloudified. And once you cloudify, you have more manpower. And if you have more manpower, you can do innovation. And that's basically the gist of things I would like to share. And this is what we've gone through. So the ultimate level of today, if you don't go farm out those areas that you can cloudify, then it will cause a lot of operational overload. And you became like very short on bandwidth. And then do you think that the IT team will continue to think about digital or business transformation? They do not have appetite for that, right? So I think the company need to be empathetic about this, to create this type of environment so that IT can actually do it, and only the top management can actually drive this. And so in a nutshell, it's about culture, right? So the cloud outsourcing, that what I mentioned, certain function that once outsourced, you will definitely free up certain resources. So then you create a business environment and driven by common conviction of a culture of creating business. And there's one thing that I realized, that when we started to sell, from an IT department, that we discovered tool that's selling to Singapore government and selling to the overseas. This culture and the thinking is very interesting. It can be contagious. It's very contagious because it started a very positive cycle when even our infra start to realize that, oh, we start to sell something and helping the industry. They also think that way and starting to innovate and think about things that we can write on the platform and offer it to the industry. And that's how we actually roll into markets. All right. So in summary, the key ingredient for the transformation we experience through is multi-level support is important, especially the top level, board level support. And then that will influence the staff mindset, techno business acumen, and also the feel fast tolerance culture, and also the different leverage on the group level HR admins, logistic marketing, and all this. So that when you spin off as a small company, of course, starting a business is not so easy. But with a group level support of corporate services, things get much easier for a start, right? So that is my last slide. I hope the sharing is useful. If there are more questions, or if you want to share more of your experience as well, we are most happy to have a discussion. My email is here. Feel free to actually drop me a mail so that we can discuss more. You may realize that we have I have two titles, right? This BH Global CIO and Athena Dynamics CEO. So that was the result of the transformation, and still running the two in Singapore. So thanks a lot, and thanks for your time and patience. I hope this has been value adding to you. Let's stay in touch and keep well and stay safe. Bye bye. Thank you.